So now in this video we're going to assemble both our shaft and our cube into an assembly. And I failed to mention in that previous video that you need to remember to save. If you don't hit save and I was to close this, I would actually lose my work. So click the save tool and simply hit OK. Okay, so let's make an assembly file. We need to go to New, Assembly, and we're going to call it Cube Shaft, and hit OK. You might be wondering where the planes have gone, and you can remember in the last video that we actually switched them off, so you need to go back up into here, into the datum display filters, and we can switch everything back on. Okay, so now we've got our planes. You'll notice that the tools are slightly different than what they are when you're building a model. One of the main differences is this big button here called Assemble. And what we're going to be doing is assembling the parts or the components one by one into this assembly file. The model tree will contain all the parts that we place in our assembly as we add them one by one. Okay, so let's get to it. The first thing we're going to do is click on Assemble, and we're going to assemble, probably assemble the box first. So I'm going to click on the box and hit Open. And here's, ooh, wrong one. Actually, let's close that. It's not what I want. So let's close that. Assemble again. It's actually a cube that we want to assemble. Here's our cube. It comes in purple. We don't want it to be purple. We want it to be gold. So the way we do that is the very first part we do, we set it to be the default part. And everything else will be based or referenced from that default part. Hit the green tick. I'm happy with that. And we can continue. Now while we're here, let's turn off all the planes. They're kind of probably going to get in our way a little bit. So we'll turn them all off except for the axis. The axis we will be needing a lot. Okay, so let's bring in the next part. Now if you can remember, I don't think I saved. So if I was to click Assemble, you'll see there's no shaft there. And the reason for that is I don't think I saved the shaft when I built it. So I can use this tool here to switch between the open parts at the moment. And I want to open the shaft, and I need to make sure I click the Save tool and hit OK. If I switch back to the assembly file now, and I click on Assemble, you'll now see that the shaft is available. If I click Open, the shaft comes in, and you have this this transform gizmo. It allows you to move the shaft in 3 axes, X, Y, and Z axis, and you also have these rotation tools that allows you to rotate it. Now this is really only useful for lining things up in a sort of a rough, general way. And what I'm going to do is just roughly line this up with this hole here. Now it doesn't look lined up at all, and it's not actually, but it's kind of in a way that I can continue working. And the way it works, when we assemble something, what we're trying to do is constrain the parts together. That is, we're going to try and place this part into one of these holes and fix it in position using what we call constraints. When we're dealing with axes, generally they're fun to use because you only generally need two constraints to hold it in. Whereas if you're not using axis-based parts, then often you'll need 3 things to constrain it. And the way we do that is we select the axis of the part we're trying to connect, and as we do that, you can see it gives you this sort of elastic band that's attached to the axis, and what it's doing, it's waiting for us to select another axis or another object in which to line up or fix this axis to. So what I'm going to do is select the axis of this particular hole here. So if I choose that axis, what it does, it automatically has set it at an angle offset, and we don't want that. What we want it to be is a coincident constraint. So we click on coincident, and what you'll notice is now the 2 axes line up beautifully. If we turn this over, you can see the axis of that shaft is now lining up with the axis of that hole. But you'll notice the thing's still purple. We won't know it's constrained properly until it turns gold. And you can tell that also up here, it says it's partially constrained. And when it's seated properly and it's gold, it will say fully constrained, that is, it can't move. Okay, so now what we're going to do is seat it. So we're going to say that surface of the shaft, notice the elastic band is still connected now, it's waiting for you to choose the bottom of that hole. The bottom of the hole, and it's gold, but it's chosen a distance constraint. And the distance it's automatically set at 331. We could change that if we wish to 0, like this, and it's seated, so they're both 0 distance apart. Or the other thing we could have done, just hit Control Z then to go back. The other thing we could do is set it to be coincident as well, and coincident will insert it so that they're flush against each other. I'm happy with that. I hit OK. Now we have a constrained shaft inside the cube. Okay, the next step we're going to do is assemble the cube, the next cube. Click on cube, hit open. You can see that they're kind of not lined up very well, so we just pull this back. This is all rough, all is sort of in position, and then we're going to grab the axis of the cube and we're going to connect it to the axis of the shaft, and it's coincident, and you'll find that they've perfectly lined up now. Okay, and we're going to seat the bottom of that hole, that's the base of that hole, it's a flat surface, we're going to constrain it to the flat surface at the bottom of that shaft. And you can see it's automatically selected coincident for us, it's turned gold, and that's perfect, that's what you're after. And we're going to hit OK. Alright, I'm going to do another one, but this time I'm going to make a mistake. So you'll be able to learn how to get out of making mistakes. And I'll do that in the next video.